Hello and welcome to the Old Man Orange Podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Dunigan.
And we're going back in time with another good old retrospect with a total classic movie that nobody is probably going to do a podcast on. I think that's kind of like a given. I know we've picked some kind of random ones, and this one might seem like one, I don't know, maybe it's weird. It's got like one real big aspect or a couple big aspects in it, but other than that, though, it feels like it's totally like a movie like way in the deep depths of like the library of like an old like video store, VHS place, you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I'll be honest. I didn't know about this movie before you sent it to me, and then I saw Mel Gibson's name in the title. I'm like, oh, this is why. And then I saw the movie started off in Australia. And I'm like, oh, I know exactly why Spencer chose this movie. You said you want to see more movies where he gets to use his Australian accent before he lost it, other than Mad Max.
I know, well, that's the one thing I always kind of miss. It's like, you know, Mel Gibson, he's like one of those guys who like totally like just ditched it like at one point. It felt like he ditched it real quick. Like it wasn't like a process of like, oh, okay, it's slowly going over time. It's starting to fade out. It was just like, no, instantaneously. It's like, past Mad Max, I mean, it's like right when he's in like Lethal Weapon and things like that, it's like America from that point on. So much so that he even does a movie where he plays the Patriot, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll be honest, for a long time, I'll be 100% honest, for a long time, I didn't know he was Australian until I think I saw, there's this show back on, I don't think South Park referenced it. There was this show, this short-lived web show, and I think it was on TV for a little while, called Super News. And I want to say it was going on for somewhere from 2006 to 2000. It was kind of like Bush's second term all the way to the early point of Obama's term. And it would just poke fun at current event stuff, usually political stuff, but sometimes get the whole spectrum. And whenever there'd be a Mel Gibson story in the news, he'd come in with this super thick Australian accent. I'm like, why the fuck is that? And then I look into it like, oh, Mel Gibson, he wasn't acting. I mean, in Mad Max, he wasn't acting. That's what he really used to sound like. He just, some days is like, he just like, they're the boomerang. I don't need this anymore. And it came back swinging out. I'm like, oh, fuck. Kept this American accent.
Exactly. It's always kind of a weird one. But like the movie that we're going with is the 1981 war classic from Australia, Gallipoli. It's a weird way to pronounce it, but it was like, I finally figured it out once the movie started rolling.
From a place you never heard of comes a story you'll never forget. Gallipoli.
Now, the thing about this movie is I had no idea what we were watching. I didn't look anything up on it. I just saw first name of the actor was Mel Gibson. Then I saw it was in Australia. And I had no idea what this was. So I was just kind of along for the ride. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so World War I's going on. I'm like, oh, they're actually going to World War. They're actually going to fight in the World War. Oh, this is a World War I movie. Okay. I just thought it was going to be like a backdrop for it for a minute. I honestly thought, the way this movie starts off, I thought it was going to be about two guys, like, just going into... I honestly thought what was going to happen, just going in blind from the way this opens up, because he's like the main, I guess, who's really the main guy of the movie, but not the lead star. The what's his name?
Mark Lee.
Mark Lee, who plays Archie Hamilton. The whole thing with him is I just assumed like he was going to meet Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson's going to be some kind of teacher that is going to teach you how to sprint properly or something like that. I'm like, oh, well, there's Mel Gibson. And then it's just like, oh, well, they're just hanging out. Oh, what's going on? Like it becomes short and simple of this movie. It just becomes one guy just joins the military because he has nothing better to do. The other guy, he's a patriot and he wants to do his part, but he kind of lies and kind of gets into the military just by lying about his age because he's so dedicated. And then it's just all of them kind of hanging out, treating it like it's a big, about to enter this big sprawling adventure. And the last roughly 20 to 30 minutes of this movie is like the hard reality of war.
Yeah, it's totally like a hangout flick. That sounds so weird to describe a war movie as a hangout flick, but that is totally how this movie's kind of presented for like the first 80%. It's just guys hanging out. It's like, it's an ultimate like bromance type movie. I mean, it's even like Mel Gibson even like goes back and forth between like his friends, and they always kind of look like, oh, you're going for that guy now? It's like, I mean, I know he's cute and blonde and all, but there's the three of us. And Billy over there is blonde. I know he's Christian, but we can.
And he's
still
the guy who doesn't want to go into the whorehouse.
Yeah.
He's the one guy who doesn't go in the whorehouse. Like that guy, the guy that looked like Flea.
Yeah, that guy totally looked like Flea.
For a minute, I thought it was Flea. And I was just like, I ain't going in there. A bunch of savages they are. Just gonna look at this. We're Christian men. We can't be going in this whorehouse. Like, fuck that, bro. I'm going to get my dick wet and going in. He's like, I'll just be waiting out here, judging from a distance. But he almost looked like, what's interesting about that character is he seemed like he was going to be the loose cannon of the group, but he's the guy who was kind of, I guess to some extent he was kind of straight edge, because he was very quick to go like, this bloke fucking stole from me. Let's go knock him around. Well, I think this might be the wrong guy. No, it's the same fucking guy. Let's fucking knock him around. And then he's also the first guy. I'm married. I can't do that.
Well, it's funny because he has like total punk rocker like mindset and even the look to him. But then it's like he's got like, oh, I've got morals, so I've got a limit I can go. I might want to fuck this guy's shop up, but that's because he's been an asshole and he sold us this that he didn't mean to sell us because he cheated us. But then there's this whorehouse over there, and that's just dirty business.
I feel like part of this movie, because once they get to Egypt, I feel like a big part of this movie becomes just like white people fucking with tanner people. That's almost what it kind of becomes for a while, because it's just like all these dudes, all these Australian soldiers just fucking around having fun, just like they're always like knocking over someone's fucking like stand, what they use to make all their fucking money, or they're cutting
knocking their laundry on the ground or something.
Or something like that. That's what it is. So I almost feel like maybe the very beginning when they're the sprinter guy, Mark Lee, is in Australia, I feel like, all right, we got to do something to bring a little bit of sympathy. Let's give him like a black best friend just for a minute, just so people don't think he's racist.
Well, I felt really bad for the Aborigine guy, because the part when he goes to leave, it's like, oh, clearly that guy can't come into the property. He's standing like on the outskirts of the fence, like waiting for his buddy. They'd be like, well, you can have that friend, but you can't, the Aborigines, yeah, you can be friends with them, but they can't let them into your house, Australia, 1915. Know the fucking rules.
It's on the back of the flag.
Yeah, that guy's probably faster than all of you, I mean, he knew how to rub leaves on your feet before you went running, Hell, I would never have known to do that, but other than that, though, yeah, he can't enter any of these contests. This is a white man's contest, and, British-controlled Australia. Just saying, son. Know the goddamn rules. Okay, Dad, I don't know why you had to go off on that tangent like that, where you better fucking know, boy. We're on the fucking west side of Australia. What are you gonna do?
Doesn't tell him the real reason he's actually training to run is just so he can outrun his dad's belt.
Yeah. This is how I get my boy to run the fastest in Australia. The old crack of the belt here. I don't know why for some reason he's got a southern. My dad has a southern accent, though he's lived in Australia his whole life.
Just those American values just roll off, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's how like Australia always feels. Australia always feels like the other America. Because at the end of the day, it's totally Wild West as can be. You know, it's just got chaos kind of going on in it, and yet it's filled with tons of freedom. Well, for everybody but the Aborigines at that
There's
time.
that. Yeah. Well, then Canada seems like just the more chill, laid back America. Like Australia seems, it's not all just America, I guess. You don't know what to call America 1, then America 2, and America 3. But I guess you could say, like, of all, like, those, I guess, I don't know how you'd exact, I mean, they all got democracy. I'm not sure what you'd call it exactly, but I guess of those three, Australia seems like, we're wild, we're crazy, we do whatever the fuck we want. We all do it kind of like right here. We got to keep it in our own little bubble. We don't fuck with people outside of our bubble. Where Canada's way more chill about it. Like, well, don't worry about it. Just come on, just take your shoes off. You know, we just got done vacuuming. Just be nice. Here, have some maple syrup. And then America just seems to be like all over the fucking place. Like, we got problems. Guess what? They're your fucking problems now too, America.
America first, goddammit. But that's always how I feel like, and it's one of those ones like, there's just never, I mean, probably maybe you go to Australia, there'd be like a huge library of movies, but I just always feel there's never enough just good Australian flicks, you know what I mean? Like, if you ask somebody on the street, you'd be lucky if they could name Mad Max as the only Australian flick they probably know. Maybe the movie called Australia might, but that movie kind of came and went real quick.
I just was double checking. You're talking about that punk rock guy, the guy that seemed punk rockish?
Yeah.
His name is David Argue. His character's name is Snowy.
My name's Snowy, because I look like a little snowflake. What the fuck's that to you?
I don't know. I think someone named Snowy, you don't really want to fuck with him. Just because that guy's got... It's like kind of like a boy named Sue.
Yeah.
Like that man's probably seen a lot of shit. You don't want to fuck with a man named Sue.
Plus, he's got morals, too, and he's going to stick hard to him. He's not going to be changed by that.
And these are like 1915 Christian morals. So, he's totally justified in stabbing you in his own mind. Right there.
Yeah, he's like, Jesus would want me to stab you. You bloody dirty whores. He's the guy who's probably running around Egypt in the middle of the night, like, murdering whores. Be like... Oh, they're just trash.
Like
I don't understand this war. Why'd you sign up? Well, my friends did, and they said that the circle group stays together.
I just wanted to be a part of something.
He's all, and then Mel left us. He bloody left us for another man.
They always leave you for another man.
Well, that's what this movie is like. I don't know. This movie almost has kind of like just like almost like Mel Gibson and the other main character, Mark Lee. They almost have like kind of a gay relationship going on. Like it's kind of weird how it's going.
Well, for being a PG movie, there's a lot of. It's not for a very long. It's not. The scene's not that long, but there's a lot of like flappy cock going on for like a good I don't know, like maybe 4 minutes in this movie.
You mean part where they go like swimming together and then it's like, oh, a mortar went off.
They're all just swimming.
Well,
they're all just swimming around like bombs
bare
are
ass
hitting.
naked
Even then,
bombs are kind of going. One guy's like,
time.
oh, I got hit by one. Oh, it's like, well, let's carry him back in.
Yeah. So just a lot of like. Yeah, that's one of those things. I was just thinking, sometimes we'd watch like movies in school, like, well, it's PG, so we can watch this, kids. It's historically accurate or whatever. It's for history class. And then just this part, they get like, oh shit, we forgot. You see Mel Gibson's cock for a minute.
Yeah, exactly. There's actually a lot of nudity in it for being a PG movie, if that's the case. But it gets away with it when you got like sort of like a historical war movie. It's like, well, it's okay. It's the part that if you would have watched this in school, they would have like the teacher would have got up and fast forwarded it really quickly on the VHS, and the class would be like, oh, come on, man. Like, I so want to see Mel Gibson's cock.
I want to see Mel Gibson's cock.
Told you want to see it. It's like, dude, it's Mel Gibson, dude. It's okay. You can love a man's cock and not be gay. Just saying.
You can nuzzle it and not be gay. At least that's what my uncle told me.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, like, that's what he wants me to do. He tells me that I'm totally not gay. He said that, like, you've sucked more cocks than, like, the straightest man I've known. It's like, What? He's like, wait, that can't be right. I mean,
rewind on that one.
He's like, and the teacher's like, this is why we gotta fast forward these scenes. I don't know how many times a kid stands up and tells him that his uncle like lets him play with him.
He just every time a kid has an epiphany and says, wait a minute, you guys don't do that too? No, we don't. Back to the movie. Look, there's explosions. There's Mel Gibson. They're racing again. Ha ha ha.
I love when they race every single time, because this is like the one thing that really takes you out of the movie, is it's just got this ultra synthesized track going on. And this movie's like early 80s.
It sounds like a sci-fi track.
It does. That's so what it sounds like. It's like, who the hell thought this was a good idea to throw this in here? Like, can't we just get some classical music or something? You know what I mean? It's like, God, it really takes you out of the period moment.
Yeah, because a lot of times they're playing this sad, I don't know what it's called, but there's this really sad, famous Russian orchestral song. And they played it a couple times this movie. I want to say Quentin Tarantino did a variation of it somewhere in Kill Bill. So, only reason I know it's actually a Russian thing is because there's a guy I used to work with who is Russian. He says, this is famous song back in my country. I'm like, oh, really? How about that? And they use that song a couple of times in this movie, and I think of the opening and then the ending. And the thing about this movie is, because I guess we should break down, we're just talking about random parts. I guess we should break down relatively what happened.
They run around naked and they fight over people in like Egypt and push them down. And then there's running scenes. Then there's a scene where they climb the pyramids and just piss Egyptians off.
Well, at the end of the way it starts off is Mark Lee is this dude working on a farm in Australia, and his uncle Jack, played by Bill Kerr, is there, and he's just like, okay, well, he's almost training him to run through like tough love and all that. And he's really good, and all the guys that he works around are like, we're all joining. You can't join, because you're not a man. You're just a boy. You can't join. Like, oh yeah, real men fight. Boys run. That's a lady sport. And he's like, I'll show you all. I can ride faster than you could ride a horse. And he's like, oh, we'll see about that, boy. So then he actually does. They jerk it in a way where he actually has less to run, but it kind of divvies out in a way where it's a little bit more evened out. Like, this guy has to go down X amount of trails on the horse, while Mark Lee just runs straight towards the house. And it almost seems like the other guy is going to beat him, but then he falls off the horse. Because the deal is Mark Lee has to do it barefoot. The other dude has to do it bareback, no saddle. So, and his Aborigine friend's like, he can do it. He doesn't need any help at all. And he's like rubbing his feet with leaves and stuff, giving him all this advice. Everything he learned from running, he learned from this guy.
Yeah, it's like the guy who can't compete.
Yeah. Well, so then he does the running, and it seems like he's going to lose, but then the asshole falls off his horse, and then he just goes in there like, oh, you know what? He made it. And then like his feet are all blistered and bloodied, and it's like 3 days from a big race, but he goes there and wins anyway.
It's funny that like that guy falls off his horse, but we never really see that. All we see is the Aborigine guy come out and go, oh yeah, he fell off his horse.
You don't see the Aborigine guy just like, knifing him and then like grabs a rock and smashes his head.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, he really did fall off. It just like leaves him for dead.
Which is what I would have assumed if we didn't see him in that final battle.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You see him because he's the guy who's being all macho the whole time, and at some point they cross each other in the final battle, and he looks scared shitless. So it's one of those things like, oh, okay. I mean, I would have liked it more if he died right there at the hand of the Aborigine guy. He just like, he died with something, had the horse run, split him in half like the beginning of Gangster Squad.
Yeah, there you go.
Penn's character.
That'd be bad.
Sean Penn's character.
No, that was a great way to start a movie, right? Just rip somebody right in half with a bunch of cars pulling them apart.
So after that, Mark Lee goes to this competition, runs and wins, makes a new record, and he's like, oh, look at this boy's amazing. And I want to say Mel Gibson's there too, and he just goes there with this thing of like, oh, you know what, I'm just going to go in, he's like this kind of drifter, he comes across as kind of a con man, and he puts all this money down. Like, oh, you know what? I bet I can beat this race. He loses to him, and they just become friends. And Mark Lee, he tries to sneak into the military. He almost tries to Captain America his way in, pretending to be, a different guy and lying about his age. Like, sorry, son, you have to be 21 to join the military, not 18. So right there is a goddamn it, and that's just.
I have to say this. Isn't that weird that in 1915 you had to be 21 to join the military? That sounds like something like out of today. Like, you know what I mean? You could still join the military nowadays, at least in the U.S. at 18. Just the idea that, like, back in those days, they're like, oh, yeah, you got to wait for them. You know, I don't want the boys to be joining. You got to wait for them to be a little bit more men.
Well, even 18 sounds like a crazy age to me. When I was 18, I'm like, oh, 18 makes sense. I'm an adult. But now,
you really realize that, like,
man,
18 is just totally, like, overgrown children is all it is. That's the weird part about once you kind of think about it. Once you get a little bit older, you're like, shit, that's like, and that's even where I kind of go, like, God, even voting feels like it needs to go farther up, you know, once you kind of see that. And I don't mean that to be kind of like a dick, but it's like, no, it's like, you don't know what kind of decisions you're making at that age. And I know that's what everybody says once they're older. Nobody says that at 18, but.
Well, it's also one of those things, it is easy to look back and be like, God, I was fucking stupid or whatever. And I know when you're, if you're 18 and you're listening to this, like, fuck you, old geezers. But at the exact same time.
Yeah, let's call the Old Man Orange podcast. Fuck you.
It's our goddamn porch.
Yeah, it's our old man porch to complain off of, and about the youth and their skateboarding and rollerblading and super soakers.
They're Tamagotchis.
They're Gagapets.
No, but like, they're Walkmans. No, all the shit we grew up on. Yeah. No, the thing is, you just look back at someone. God, I look at someone who's like 23 or 22, and like, man, that's bare. Like now, like being 31, it's one of those things. I know that I'm not really that old, but at the exact same time, it's that weird phase where people who are 40 look at you like you're so young. But then people like that are like, like maybe like 23 and under look at you like you're old as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. No wonder you call yourself Old Man Orange. It's like, hey, don't down the name now.
But anyway, it's a brand.
It's a brand, goddamn.
But no, anyway, we're getting off topic. Short and simple.
Let me just say that. It's like, that's just a strange coincidence that like 12 years can make.
Yeah. Now, just I'm getting off topic here. I guess short and simple of it, 18 itself just seems like a weird time to like, hey, yeah, here's a decision 18-year-old you can make, and for like the rest of your life, that just seems like a weird age. Even 21 though, so it just seems weird back then. That was even lower at 21.
I mean,
at least in Australia.
Granted,
I want to say they went to a different city.
Oh, as I say, well, yeah, but they had forged papers and everything. Remember?
Yeah.
But I think it's one of those ones, like, the reason why they like young, youthful people, though, is they're a little bit more easy to manipulate. If you try to, like, get people that are, like, 25 years old to be like, fuck this, I know what I'm doing in life. Yep, have your war, I'm out of here, I got a business to run, you know what I mean?
Oh, I know the reason why, but just in thinking back on it, it just seems kind of weird to me. But I know the reason why. They want minds they can mold and make into the perfect killing machine at an early age. I'm not trying to sound all like so conspiracy man, but it's I'll be honest, I think it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, it's just like why people like child soldiers is because you can give them like a candy bar, and next thing you know, they'll take a gun into battle pretty damn easily.
Dude, they kill for Kit Kats. Really? Fuck yeah, dude. You can share one Kit Kat among 5 of them if it's a king size.
Yeah, see, the worst part is you get a guy who's 25 years old and now he wants health care and like paid insurance and a 401k, but fucking that 12-year-old, you give him a box of Skittles, he's fucking ready to murder.
That 25-year-old, he's still gonna want that Kit Kat.
Yeah, he might want the Kit Kat, but he might say that it might affect his health insurance and that he might not be able to get certain coverage. So he's just going to bitch about half the things.
So yeah, what ends up happening is they end up forging some papers, and Mark Lee, wants to go into the, what was it again? The feather, was the White Horse Brigade, or what was it called?
No, it wasn't. It was, God, what the fuck was it called? It was called,
There was some.
Yeah, it had like a pretty name.
It was the White Horse. It was very flowery, you know.
Yeah. God damn it.
But anyway, he was going to the brigade where he was on horseback, and Mel Gibson couldn't ride horseback, but he was trying to learn, so he went into infantry. But along the way, they have this conversation where Mark Lee is blatantly saying, "Hey, let's join the military. It's our duty. It's our duty to join the military." Mel Gibson says, "Why? It's England's war. We're just helping them out. Why should we do it for England after all the bad history they've done for us?"
They're called the Light Horsemen.
Oh, the Light Horsemen. Okay. The thing went out for a minute, the audio. Yeah, but no. The whole thing with it was, so after basically Mark Lee more or less guilt trips Mel Gibson into thinking about joining, and Mel Gibson's like, "Yeah, okay, yeah, sure, I'll come along. At first he doesn't want to, but he ends up doing it. And as they're there, it just becomes almost just these guys, then guys Mel Gibson meets when he gets there. Because for a while, Mark Lee's out of the picture. Just Mel Gibson. We see him getting around, going through training, hanging out in Egypt with all these guys. And it's almost just this really just guys hanging out and very... I think that's kind of the thing about this movie. It's very lighthearted until you get to the very end.
And I think that was the vibe they were sort of going for. They wanted to kind of have that kind of like, oh, we're just going to go to war. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be like a Captain America of like fucking comic book. You know, though that hasn't been invented yet, I have the feeling that this is what's going on. You know, and then it's like when the shit finally goes down, it's like, oh, fuck. Yeah, yep, there's war right there. Boy, I tell you what. No.
Which was everyone's attitude going into World War I. So it's going to be a grand adventure. Everyone's going to have a good old time. And then, it's like, oh, yeah, there's the trenches and gas. And I will say I haven't seen I'm sure if you look long enough, you could find it. But I haven't really seen very many movies focused in Australia fighting. I've seen a lot of World War II British movies, but I have not seen a whole lot of Australian movies. So that in itself makes this movie interesting. They're fighting the Turks. That's one thing they're doing.
Yeah, because they're just doing the Battle of Gallipoli or whatever, and that's right off of Turkey and so on. But the thing is like there's not very many World War I movies actually just made. It's like that's already a rare genre. You know, there's like you can think of like All Quiet on the Western Front. That's always like the biggest one. You know, there's like the Errol Flynn one. That's a pretty cool one. I'm drawing a blank on it, but he's fighter pilots in World War I. You know, but yeah, very few movies are even just made on World War I. I don't know why that is, though. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. This isn't a World War I movie, but this is one we definitely got to do because it's totally our wheelhouse. It's obscure and it involves the Rolling Stones. And while we're on the topic of Australia, Ned Kelly.
Oh,
we got to do Ned Kelly.
Yeah, that'd be a sweet one to do.
That stars Mick Jagger. Did you ever see Ned Kelly?
You let me borrow it a long time ago whenever you first got it.
Yeah. That's one we got to do at some point.
That would be a sweet one. Because that's another genre that's pretty cool. And you can find some of them, but there's the Australian Westerns. Because really Australia is no different than like, America's West in a sense. You know what I mean? They got horses, cattle ranches, gunfights, and so on.
And everything there wants to kill you, probably more than so in America.
Yeah, and also the thing about the westernness of like Australia is that almost continues even more to this day. Is like because Australia had that continue on because that outback area. I mean, it didn't. There's not like there's cities everywhere like there kind of is in the U.S. There is a lot more free territory out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what I like to do at some point. I think I said that to you before, but totally slipped my mind. But you're on the topic of Australian movies. Yeah, Ned Kelly is one we got to do at some point.
That'd be sweet.
But going back to this, it just becomes all these guys just hanging out and throwing down. We were talking about there's the one part where Snowy, as well as Mel Gibson, and this whole like gang of guys. I want to say their names are Barney and Billy. I want to say that those are the characters. I'll just have single names, and Billy's played by Robert Grubb and Barney Tim McKenzie. And they're all just hanging out, having a good time. But at some point, one of them comes in. He's just like, this guy, I think it was Barney, comes in and says, like, this guy robbed me. He ripped me off. He's like, wait, he ripped you off? Like, yeah. Like, oh, where the fuck is he? So he's like, yeah, let's fuck him up. Let's fuck him up. Mel Gibson seems to be like, let's fuck him up. Let's do a comedy. And then where I want to say Billy, I think maybe Billy comes in, is like, let's be diplomatic here. Now, this guy just goes into this shop, and I feel so bad for this guy around this shop.
I know.
He goes in, he's just like, now my friend here, he paid. Well, I don't remember the what the pricing was. So essentially,
he paid like £2 or something for it, and the other
dude guy paid way less for at another shop.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going back and forth like, no, that's not very fair. Would you say, like, sir, I don't sell that here. He's like, Mel Gibson's like, oh, well, it'll be a shame. He just puts his hand on my counters, keeps knocking shit over. He's like, please leave, just take your money, He just gives him the money and just let you leave. As they're walking by, he's like, oh, that was the wrong store. He walks by and realizes, guys, he just like follows them.
I know, I laughed so hard at that part. I felt so bad for the guy, but it's just like, because that's the one part that people always forget about in wars. I'm surprised that, like, you know, people touch on it in movies, but you could almost do an entire movie on it where it's just like, just the town being like so fucking pissed that there's all these soldiers just showing up and just causing havoc, because that's really what happens, like especially in the olden days. But I feel like it happens probably just as much nowadays too, maybe a little bit less because of technology and cameras and so on. But I think that's what happened, is they would show up in these towns and they would just feel like they had the run of the place, like a bunch of, once again, overgrown children. They're all like 18 and whatnot, and there's almost like no real too much laws for them there, so they can just kind of run amok, just tearing it up, you know?
I have a friend who's actually, he said he liked Fury, but he really hated that part when they go into that German town.
Perfect example.
Yeah, that part when they're, you know, when he's like, hey, make me some dinner. You play the piano, you know, like that kind of thing, where it's like, I could see that happening. I can't say for a fact if it did, but I can totally see that happening.
Well, that's what I was once like. I don't even have to say you could see that happen. You know, 100% that happen. Maybe not like that. That's can be written in like that. But you know that's what happens when people. That's just how war is. It doesn't matter who you are. You know, you think that like, oh, it's the Americans, it's the good guys. They're warriors at the end of the day. They're going to be a bunch of like animals walking around. I mean that like in a negative way. It's just that's just how it is. You know, it's no different than Troy. It's no different than like the Greeks. It's no different than doesn't matter where you are. The Japanese in China. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, that's just kind of how war is, because the people a lot of times get attracted to that, are the people that just like, oh shit, I gotta do all this like illegal stuff, but like I get paid to do it and it's not illegal now.
Well, I think you take into account, you when you're kind of in a group like that, you do get kind of this tribe kind of mentality to some extent. And then you're like, well, this isn't my home. I don't know anybody. And on top of that, you probably get a power complex because you're just trained to be a killing machine.
Yeah, and you're like, and the same thing too, especially when you're like in another country. You're like, I'm never fucking coming back here, so nobody's gonna remember, or like, I'm not gonna have to like worry about this. I mean, they will. They'll fucking remember it till the day they die. But beyond that, I'm not gonna have to remember it. I'll fucking drink my way out of it by the next town.
Exactly. Like, you're a kid now. Have fun. Like
a
comedian or some shit.
Exactly. But yeah, that scene in Fury, I always think that's a perfect example that kind of like showcases just like, oh yeah, there you go. It's not all just like patriotism and like fun and games. It's like, no, there is like some serious evil people that lots of times just join the military.
Mm-hmm. But going back to this movie, so a good portion of the movie is just that. And at some point, Mark Lee and Mel Gibson bump into each other in the middle of a training exercise. Like, okay, so here's the training, which seemed, I mean, I'm no military strategist, but this training exercise seemed pretty fucking silly.
It was, I don't know, maybe that was just the Australian way. I'm not too sure. Maybe that's how they do train. This is all I have to go off of is a couple movies.
Well, they go off, all right, they're shooting just flashbangs at each other, and then when they get close, they just start, fighting each other. It's like, okay, you got hit a lot, so you lay down, you're out of the game. You guys lay down, you're out of the game. And I think they kind of did this just to show how unprepared people were for the fight. Yeah. Because some people were like, let's just lay down. We'll like bullshit hang out. We don't have to keep on doing the stupid fucking training exercise if we just lay down and bullshit here.
And yeah, because there's that one guy's like, you can't all be fucking dead. Somebody's going, like, who's going to win? So they're just like all like kicking back, partying, just like, yeah, whatever. Well, pretty much what it is, it's just like, it's like old school laser tag.
Yeah.
That was like, they would have been better off, just, I don't know, like the way that they went about that's like, wow, that seems like a waste of time and money, but whatever, okay.
And I just like to imagine, like, okay, you see, it's like Qzar or something. Like, you see that crystal, you go into the enemy's base and you shoot your gun at the crystal hanging in the middle of their base. That gives you X amount of time to leave.
Yeah, just going for it, like, oh, okay, sure, let's do it.
This thing on your chest will vibrate when you are shot. If it makes the boo, 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 it means you're low on ammunition and you must go to the recharge counter over here.
And I just picture a guy stand behind the crystal because it's 1915. Because he puts his head around and goes like, boo, boo, boo. Like, because there's no other way they're going to be able to do it.
He's got to have like one of those long, like fucking old school, like, like horns for, not horns, but like one of those things where you just like you speak into like a, what do you call it? Not like, I don't know, I guess.
Megaphone?
A megaphone without electricity. Whatever you call that.
Yeah, a phone? Yeah. It's not mega yet? I don't know. Or maybe it's mega before phone. I'm not too sure.
I don't know. Maybe it was, yeah. It looks like a horn. Anyway, yeah.
Bullhorn?
So
maybe that's what it's originally called, is the bullhorn.
Possibly. Yeah.
Because something
something like that.
But yeah.
But so the guy goes in. Guys, there's a big delay today, folks, in the Skype. Anyway, so after they just kind of hang out, they're just hanging out and having a good time for a while. And I think something about this movie, I really don't know. I'm no major historian. I used to know a lot about history, but it was one of those things, like, I remember being back in college, learning about history and a lot of it sticking and just being like really into it and being able to ace tests and all that, like, oh, well, after that, that's why America and Russia became enemies again, because they took the bombing of Hiroshima as like a test, as a fuck you, look what we got, because we didn't warn them that day, and that kind of led to this, which led to that, and more other things. I could like name off all these different dates and people. I can barely remember any of that shit now. I knew enough to get through on tests, but then I knew it like that. So World War I, Australian history is a little dodgy to me, but it's one of those things where I'm not really sure how they view it. If they view it as like, man, we were really fucking used and abused by the British, because that's the way this movie ends.
Yeah, and that might be kind of like what's going on and so on with it, because, yeah, the whole ending battle is literally one of those ones where just the British are like, no, you go, we shot our cannons off, now you go up there and get them. It's like, oh, yeah, but they got machine guns, and we're literally sending guys with bayonets and no bullets. Like, we don't give a flying fuck, Australia. You go up there and you go take it and you put your flag down so that we can send all British troops in. The ones that matter.
That's kind of the way it comes across. And something this movie got some shit for was there was that British officer. Apparently, a lot of people, I don't know how accurate it is, but it's one of those things that people say that they really made that guy seem way worse than he was, and they kind of like twisted things to make that battle because they wanted to give some bureaucratic asshole, make him the villain. So I don't know how accurate that is, but that's something I kind of read somewhere.
Yeah, that's probably more realistic. You know what I mean? Because that seems kind of like a movie thing, is just to kind of like just turn it up so it's like they're almost like pure pressured to go in. And well, Mel Gibson had the word to stop it, but he obviously couldn't make it there in time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm actually reading something right now. This is actually off Wikipedia. Indeed, very little British command and control was exercised at Neck. So, yeah, there's something right there. So I could see, though, people being frustrated. Like, it's one of those things, going back to another movie based on a true story, which really different movie, but still, it's like there's that God, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank on their name. It's the famous famous robbery couple.
Bonnie and Clyde?
Bonnie and Clyde, yeah. In that movie, because there's the one officer that comes after him. He's like, oh, well, aren't you just some crooked officer coming after us, trying to like get some money for your sale? You're a fucking asshole, And then he's the guy that comes in and manipulates some situation, just kills them all in cold blood. So they wanted to give you somebody to hate. Real life, that was just a dude doing his job. And he didn't do that shit. He did not kind of go against orders and go out of his jurisdiction to get fame. It was literally like, oh, I've been kind of tracking these guys for a little while. They're coming in right here. let's do our fucking job and take care of them. And it wasn't one of those things they shot unprovoked. They had guns. They were ready to go. So it's one of those things that every so often, even though I really like that movie, I kind of understand if some people have a problem with that. It's like, well, in real life, that was just a dude doing his job, and he wasn't a bad guy. Or at least, so I don't know about his whole life, but in that aspect, he wasn't the bad guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know for a fact, like, in this movie that we're watching, that, like, there was a lot of, like, heavy casualties to, like, the Allies as far as, like, battling in that kind of Turkey Ottoman Empire section. And so that kind of, like, just people dying just to die. Like, it's like, I think that's, maybe it's, like, expanded a little bit with, like, a little bit of, like, the British guy kind of thrown in there. But for the most part, that still was, like, a heavy loss for, like, Australia.
Yeah, so was like D-Day, like something like D-Day, because they knew that, we're going to lose a lot of fucking Americans on D-Day. So this is probably something to that, but probably with less. Did anything really come of this for Australia? I really don't know my history of this side of the World War One that well. Did a whole lot come from this battle other than Australia having this major loss? I mean, did it continue on? They came back around, or was it like, we lost it? Fuck.
They never took that Ottoman kind of section of it, but they did they did push them back though. That is the thing. But that I think it's one of those ones like it damaged Turkey and so on like that. But I think Turkey still had the edge the whole time.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's the thing. At the very end, I'll give this movie credit because this isn't me saying I dislike the movie, but I don't think it's a movie I'm ever going to watch again just because it's a movie that it's not a movie that kind of gets you on a twist, but it's a movie where you get to know the characters, you see them hanging out, and then you kind of know it's just them hanging out and not a whole lot happens. It's just kind of interesting to watch in that aspect. And, it's kind of an interesting history lesson. I don't know how much of it's true. But then you get to the end, and then it's just very hard and brutal, and you see all these guys you've grown to like die. But I give it credit for the end because I didn't think it was going to end the way it did. It's a bleak as fuck ending. And it's one of those endings like, oh, you guys did that. I didn't see that happening.
Plus it's got hardcore 70s, like movie's done, cut the credits.
Yeah. Because what ends up happening is, I think it's also meant to be one of those things like, because what happens is, first off, you have the old British dude saying, I don't care. They're Australian boys, not British boys. They can die, and then they had the one Australian general on the phone, like, God, I think I just have to go over his head for this one. And then Mel Gibson comes in and is like, I'm a fast runner. I'm a sprinter. Just point me in the direction of where I got to go over his head. We'll get this happening. And here's the tragedy of it. He says, like, you know what? Go for it. So then he goes running as fast as he can and can't make it in time to give the new order. He goes to the general, barely manages to avoids getting shot, barely. Says, like, you know what? Yeah, pull out. Go over there, tell him to pull out. Like, awesome. He's running back, but he can't make it in time. And it kind of makes you think, what if they got Mark Lee rather than Mel Gibson do that run? Would he have made it in time?
No, because they were pretty much about like neck and neck. It would have still been off.
Didn't Mark Lee beat him like every time?
Yeah, but like by like like a split second, really. At the end of the day, like he wasn't really that much fat. He was like just a tad bit fat, probably just faster than him because he trained for it. Where it seemed like Mel Gibson kind of just did it on like as like a side thing, like he was a weekend warrior at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't like they were that much. It wasn't like it was like like send the guy who's 200 pounds overweight. Oh yeah. Oh jeez.
Well, if we're on top of a hill, he has momentum on his side, so maybe he will get there.
He'll start rolling down. I've seen a video game before.
Like it'll be like fucking like Raiders of the Lost Ark with that fucking boulder. Yeah. He'll maybe take a few out along the way.
Yeah, exactly. Here gives you kind of an idea of those casualties and losses by both like the British Empire section and like the Ottoman Empire. The British lost 302,000 people, and the Ottoman lost 250,000.
Oh damn. Yep.
So yeah, more than 500,000 people died at this battle. That's kind of, or there's this whole like section. I guess maybe not just this movie part, but like the whole battlefront of the. I guess the Gallipoli campaign.
Mm-hmm. There was there's also this thing. Apparently, what's the character played by, I want to say there's an actual athlete that was in the field, and which is Rich, I don't keep this guy's name, Mark Leese, what his character was based on. And I want to say it said right here, one second. Yeah, I'm totally reading this off Wikipedia right now. Wilford was last seen running forward like a schoolboy in a foot race with all the speed he could compass. So yeah, Wilfred Harper, who is what that Richard Lee character was lightly based off of, who was a sprinter back in that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think this one's pretty darn accurate overall. I mean, like, yeah, they're going to do a little bit of the movie kind of twist just to make it like the storytelling part and just add in those extra details and so on. But I think just, the main like backstory of it is pretty darn accurate.
But the way it just ends, which is once Richard Lee's character just dies, gets shot, it freeze frames, it holds, and then it just kind of fades to black and then credits. And it's like, holy shit, you're in there? I thought it was going to end with like, someone reading a letter he wrote, or Mel Gibson, like, well, some of us made it out, but, there was hope. But like, no, people fucking die. Because even Dunkirk ended on this positive note of, this is a major loss for us, but we will overcome, we will win, we will, it just gives this, and I'm not sure, does it end on a Winston Churchill speech? Maybe it was something to that effect. But this does not have that ending. It's just like, oh, motherfucker, homeboy just got fucking shot up, and it just credits.
And I like that, though. I love that 70s style of ending. Just like, no bullshit. This is where it ends at. We're calling it a day. Credits. Like, and I feel like you can't pull that nowadays. That would like throw people off anymore. But that's one of my favorite types of ways to end a movie is like, not the extended endings, not the, the 7 endings of like how, Sam and Frodo have blown each other in the last 3 weeks. Like, no, it's just fucking done. You know what I mean? Like, it's over with. And that's like how I feel like that one too. It's like, we don't need the letter. We don't need like any of those ones. It's like, that's it. That's all you need to know. Everything else is just extra.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies, I enjoyed it. I liked it, but I wasn't really blown away by it. I think this is kind of like maybe a one-time watch movie. Even something like Dunkirk, which I did like, that's maybe like a once or twice watch for me.
And there's nothing wrong with those kind of movies. I think there's some of those movies out there, like, because I like enjoyed this one. I felt like I got a lot of stuff out of it, you know what I mean? But certain movies, it's not like, I'll say like Hacksaw Ridge, which is one of those like Mel Gibson movies you could throw on any time. It's just that good. Where this one's just, it's a very neat movie. It's very interesting and so on, but that's kind of what it is. Yeah, definitely a one-time watch, but definitely worth going out of your way and seeing, And
a one-time watch doesn't always mean, like we said, it's bad. It just means it's kind of, you kind of get the gist of it within 1 or 2 watches probably. And there's probably smaller things you can catch a second time around. It's just more than anything else, like, it's so kind of, it's not even, it's like, oh, it's so bleak, I can never watch it again. It's more like, you know what, I get what it's about, and I get what it's trying to say, and I learned something from it. It was definitely worth seeing at least once, I think.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. And it's by director Peter Weir, and he's always cool. He's done like things like Master and Commander, and he did Dead Poet Society and so on. So I was like, oh, I like that director, But and it's cool seeing just young Mel Gibson. That's always just neat in itself.
Yeah, you kind of forget what it looks like. You look at him now, you're like, oh, right. He was the young guy in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, well, even in Lethal Weapon, I know it's only like 6 years away from this movie, but he already looks like radically older in that film. I know, it's fun. They always call him like the young guy in Lethal Weapon, but he's always kind of looked, just, still like he was like mid-30s or so.
Younger. A little bit younger than Murtaugh.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's how I always felt. He didn't feel like he was like, sort of in the movie, they make it feel like they're drastically different in age, but I always felt like more like, I don't know, like 10 years younger than him. I mean,
well, I think it's also those things like, what does he do? Well, he does all these karate kicks, and he like slams his elbow slams his shoulder into the fucking wall to dislocate it or whatever. So I think it's like he's the crazy young wild card, and Murtaugh's like the angry, like, god damn it, I'm 3 days away from retirement, and I just like I don't kick my problems, I punch him like a man.
Yeah, and I carry a revolver around,
exactly.
But no, this was a fun movie. There's something I felt like I was gonna like add to this, and I just totally like drew a blank, and I can't remember what the hell it was. But it was something about, I can't remember if it was World War I, Mel Gibson. You know, now all these ideas are just stringing together, and I don't remember where I was going with it, but yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, anyway, check this movie out when you can. It's worth a watch.
Yeah, totally worth a watch. It's just that random movie that you probably would never grab, because I didn't even know what I was getting into. I just knew it was like early Mel Gibson movie. Sure, I'll watch it. You know, I didn't know it was a war movie. Didn't know. For all I know, it could have been about the Boy Scouts.
Once I realized, that's the location, I just felt like uncultured swine. Once I saw, that was a big battle, and okay. You know, it's like, who's that? Is that a boxer or some shit?
Yeah, like for all they could have been anything. You know, I mean, hell, the way the movie starts off, I felt like I was watching a Dracula picture.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all like black with red fonts. They're playing sad Russian music.
Yeah, it's just got all kinds of crazy stuff going on. But yeah, good times to be had. Other than that, I guess you can check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, comics, music, movies, and all that fun stuff. I got Pizza Boys issue 6 out. You can grab that on Comix Central and Amazon. And then, grab this movie. I'll put it in the description if you want to check it out. You can grab it on Amazon, see what you're missing out on, and go from there. Till then, I'm Spencer Scott Holmes.
And I'm Rand Dunigan.
We'll see you some other time.
Later, folks.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange Podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comix Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comix Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again, we're out of here.